everyone, welcome along there. So week 5 extras. Now, what I wanted us to all think about and look at really was, why would we use a development pipeline? What does it do? Does it benefit us? Does it actually do me any favours? Or am I just making my life more difficult? Is governance something that we actually really want, need, care about? First off, I hope you did watch week 5, the main video. If you haven't, I'll wait. You can go and do it now. Go on, off you scan. Right, so we've all watched it. So let's go on over and let's see what we mean in Power BI. Champion. Alright, so here I am, back in my development pipeline, okay? New Water Towers report. There's a couple of things, right? A couple of things that I really want to call out that are problems with the development pipeline concept as it's been implemented by Microsoft. Hopefully, I'm not going to read, hopefully one of them might see this and think, oh, that would be a good idea to add that link. Problem number 1, and it's probably the biggest deal breaker for me in terms of, is this really able to do what it's supposed to do? So we'll get that out the way straight away, we'll discuss it, and we can be really clear about it, right? Problem number 1, and this is the biggest one that I can find, is if I click on the deployment history and I've got all this information, brilliant, it's what I need, okay? I can't get it out anywhere. I can't figure out how I'm supposed to extract it. Am I missing something? Am I not? I don't think I am. I think it's all hidden somewhere and I don't know where it is. That's job number 1, biggest problem I've got with the whole thing, okay? If we can live with that and you can cope with it, and honestly, I can. It's not great, but it can just about cope with it, right? Of course, yes, I've got some tools, we've got some kit, we can get all the figures out of it if we need to, but, you know, having to do web scrapes, I don't want to be doing that. Not for an enterprise grade tool that should be enterprise grade. And frankly, it's premium. So Microsoft, get your shopping order, please. Okay. If you know if you know how to do it, put it in the comments down below, right? Call us all names under the sun. I don't mind. I'm always happy to learn if I've missed something. I don't think I have though, but yeah, you know, always happy. Okay. Apart from that, okay, this is really important. We get these development pipelines to work by using the rules, okay? So in the case of what we've got here, I showed you, didn't I, where we used a rule to set a parameter, in this case test, right, or the environment name, okay? That could be server environment, that could be connection string, that could be something else, anything else that you've got. And that leads us to a big question, okay? Now, this is another real big bone of contention in terms of, I am doing Power BI environment. I am an analyst, right? You are an analyst. So being an analyst, what do I mean by that, okay? Because this is important and this is something that we have to make sure we're all clear about in our minds and what it is that we're doing. So in a normal environment, right, a transactional deployment that you'd be going through, okay, you're going to have, often for an enterprise grade thing, we're going to have a database, okay, and then we're going to have like some sort of an app, okay. Okay, so you've got your database and you've got your app. Now that's normal, okay? Different things, different ways of doing it, right? But simply put, that becomes an environment, okay? So what you do when you're developing and building stuff is you have your dev environment, right? And then we'll get our lasso. We'll paste it and we'll paste it again. So we end up with effectively 3 environments, okay? And the point being, right, that for me, 3 environments, what I want is to manage that this becomes prod, this will be test or QA, yeah? So I'll put QA, prod. Okay, so I've got 3 copies there. Everything's a clone of everything else, right? Dev goes to QA, QA goes to prod, right? We're comfortable with it. That makes sense. That's how my world works, right? But I'm an analyst, right? I'm not an app developer. I'm not out to make sure that the new way to fill this form in is even better and to make sure that the data integrity is there in terms of being able to write back, update different tables of a database. I'm not writing. That's the key piece there for me, right? So because when you're a data analyst, you're not writing, okay? My view, right, is that from a Power BI perspective, unless there is a compelling reason, yeah, you understand? Everything Power BI should come from there, the production database, right? So what we have in our development pipeline, and again, I apologize, my artwork is not the best. It's a pipeline or deployment pipeline. Yeah, deploy is what we end up with is this, isn't it? So we've got our Power BI environment and the dev pipeline here. We can put it there and let's put it there. Okay, so we'll have, move that out the way. Why is my pen not working? Dev, test, prod, okay? But the key thing is it's all coming back, isn't it, to the same production database that we've got. Now, this is a really, really sticky topic, okay? Really sticky topic, okay? Some people, it divides everyone when we're getting to Power BI. There is no right, there is no wrong with this. This is my view, but I know a lot of people who feel very differently about this. But I'll sketch out my arguments and the reasons behind it, what we can do. Okay, so we looked at the parameters, didn't we? Now, I can set a parameter that's going to change it to a different area and point to dev for this. I can use that to test me dev against dev. Right? The problem, right, and the biggest problem and the realities behind change management process, between DevOps, behind Agile, behind all these other ones that are trying to manage changes in environment into a business is, how can you validate and prove that prod, right, is the same as dev and QA? What do I mean? Okay, because if prod is not in sync anymore with your other environments, okay, your testing's invalid. So if I build in my dev, like let's say it's 1.1 now, okay, that's different by definition from what QA is going to be and what prod is going to be, okay? That's the whole point, is I'm promoting these changes through. But if the app, or if prod is on a different version altogether, or there's some difference in the way it's gone through, or something fails testing and we don't fully bring everything through, you don't understand what you're deploying against. So potentially you have issues, right? If you've ever been at work and patches have happened or updates have happened to applications, line of business applications, updates have happened and, oh, it's not working. Works in test. It's what it comes back to. This is the challenge. So if we set our deployment pipeline for Power BI to look at different environments, are we running that risk? Just because you're pointing to the same database doesn't mean that you have to pull everything through. So your prod might be the only area that is all, Yeah. Oh. So all data, yeah, comes to prod. You test, you might be say like last year. And your dev, you might be setting that to last quarter, okay? And you can do that with your dev test and QA or dev test and prod parameters. You can write in all sorts of things like that to do that logic. And you say, well, does it make a difference? And the honest answer is no, it doesn't, right? You know, why does it not make a difference? This is where production Power BI, when you really are using your production Power BI, you find the whole concept of saying, well, we're just going to look at like a last year, just going to look at last year, or we're just going to look at last quarter. It just doesn't make sense, right? Because actually, let's see, stop talking, go and have a look. Let's have a look. So here's an example workspace, right? This is one of the ones we did years ago. God, years ago now, it's terrible. Right, looking at the New York City taxis, okay? This is the area I want you to really understand, okay? When we zoom in here, we've got this New York City data set, and it's servicing 3 reports at the moment, right? There's 3 reports right now, okay? So if I'm doing any work in development, 9 times out of 10, my development work is going to be on these thin reports, okay? Thin reports. So they don't actually care how much data they're pulling through. There's no impact on it. The other thing is the data set is contained here, okay? It's contained here. So my usage is going to be curtailed within here. Now, there are reasons in terms of if you've got massive data models and you've got premium capacity that you would say, well, we're just going to restrict dev and QA to a last quarter or last year due to size of data set. So this data set is in production is say 8 gig, right? And you've got your 10 gig capacity. So you're going to say, well, I don't want to put 8 gig and 8 gig. I can't do it, right? I can't. So you're going to do something else, aren't you? You're going to turn around and say, well, we'll use just a small subset, which is then for the last year is 1 gig. So that's fine. We're still well within it. And then last quarter is going to be a quarter of that, isn't it? So you're still well within your limits and everything that comes in under your 10 gigabytes. That's your business model data available. You can do your testing and do your production against it. It'll all work, won't it? Right? So you can see the rationale and you can see the mindsets, but it's one to be aware as to, well, you know, what we're doing, why, what makes sense to do. And all of these are really important for you as you're thinking through your deployment strategy is what actual work are we expecting the vast majority of the deployment pipeline activity to be, right? And honestly, it's going to be these thin reports. You could even go down the route and say, well, these thin reports, do we actually care if they are updated? And that was something that I wanted you to remember, right? We looked at the report, didn't we? When we looked in week 5, I actually went through and did some tweaking of these reports, right? Which is a massive no-no, right? Don't ever let people do it, right? But I keep saying, always say, don't let people do it. They will. There's no way of stopping them. And it's a pain in the neck. So it's far too easy to come in, hit edit. I'm now updating this report. I can go through, change something, come back, file save. I've updated. Okay. This is the biggest beef, right? Governance teams have with Power BI. Okay. Is you can't govern it. So I've moved that there, hit save. Oh, I just save it, right? This is now different. I want to hit don't save because I don't want to save it. The net of all this, the impact of all this, and the way that what this all means is you need to be really careful about who can do all these things. So what you can do with your deployment pipelines is you can restrict then who can actually deploy stuff into your production environment so that people don't have the right to edit content in your production environment. They can only do it in a dev, and then it rolls up through. And that's a benefit as well. So it's one of those things, because 9 times out of 10, and this is what will always drive it, is you'll get somebody say, oh, that visual there, the manager doesn't like TOD. What does that mean? What does TOD mean? Okay, so we've got to go and present it to the board in an hour. You know, what can we do? So I'll come through, we'll go in and we'll say, all right, so this one here, we're going to just change the title on it. Okay, it's just a title, it's nothing major. Right? To say time of day. Okay, job done. Right, simple. And that was easy, wasn't it? And then because, well, I don't like the colour. Oh, can you change? Oh, can you do? Right, and it's quicker to do it straight in there. Bad discipline. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is great. This is the way to do it. It's bad, but it happens, and it causes problems because each time that happens, my offline copy that I have is different. And this is why you'll find any time you do work with me, I'll push you, use thin reports, you know, use these, okay, connected reports to the data set, because then we don't have to worry so much about our change management process for it, because you're changing visualization layer, you're not changing data, you're not changing anything to do with the way the model works, you're just changing the pretty pictures on top of it. And you will do that. So if we're doing that, hang on, you're thinking, what does this all mean when I come back to here and I've got my deployment pipeline? Because what am I actually interested in governing? And what's the point that we've got our change management process wrapped around to protect? And my point is, it's this here, it's this data set that you want to protect. The data set has to be what we protect. If we're not protecting the data set, everything else has failed. So by protecting the data set, we're protecting the source of the data set. So that's what we need to make sure that we are aware. What is the source coming into this data set? And then what is the data set going to be the source of? And to be fair to Microsoft, okay, and I often feel like I'm not fair to them enough, okay, when I come in here and I have a look at what they've now built for the data set view, okay, this has everything on it that you could want and should be looking at to understand, are we managing our data set properly and well? So we've got access to understand, actually, where are people looking at it from? And we can see we've got it, this is across different workspaces now. So you can do things like that. Because you can go across different workspaces, there's nothing to stop you just having your deployment pipeline looking at your data set and another deployment pipeline looking at your visualization list. You might not want to do it. You're getting really complicated. You might just have your deployment pipeline managing something that just contains a data set and data, because that is the important thing. That's what you want to manage. And that's really where your governance team will focus. What do you reckon then? This is a tough topic, okay? Because this is the reality. This is like the crux, as it were, of what we do as data analysts, what we do within an IT team, what we do across a business. Right? Everybody wants to get the most out of their data. That's true, okay? But data and data are different. Transactional data, as you're going through recording what your business is doing, that has to have a layer of governance on top of it. Your analysis of data is potentially a different governance structure that you require. And it's getting to that mindset that you understand the difference between A and B and how you're going to really maximize the benefits of both of them, so that you're not compromising one for the betterment of the other. And betterment is definitely not necessarily the betterment. But if we're going through and saying, well, there have been changes made to the tax rate, so the GL has had to have column A added or updated, potentially there's an issue there. Potentially there isn't, but it's one that we would test through. So we need to be able to test against different environments. But for the majority of our analytical work, we shouldn't be looking at any other environment but production. At least that's my view. Okay. Happy to have you carry on this discussion in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed it, like and subscribe. I hope you're going to keep coming back, and I hope you're going to interact with us some more and tell us what your views are. Do you think I'm up to speed? Do I understand what my clients are asking? Have I missed something? Have I misrepresented something? Either way, let us know. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Take care. Ta-da.